Hey guys, it's Chad from the Teach Better team, and we just finished an amazing mastery chat. And I have the one, the only, the amazing Katie Alvarez with me tonight. Katie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here and to hash out this awesome chat that we had tonight on feedback and how it affects culture. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually love Adam Yankay, and his focus tonight was culture, but it was sort of really hyper focused on how do we change culture based on feedback we give and or receive our students, right?
right.
And I think that's a really important piece, right? Because we can pretend as teachers that we want to build or create any type of culture in our classroom, but if we don't take into account how our students are feeling about what we want as that culture, it's probably not going to go very well. So in your classroom and in your experience, what do you think the most important components of culture are?
Okay, so I think feedback is a huge component of that. It's I wrote a blog post for you guys recently on student agency, and I talked about how when I removed my teacher desk, how that changed everything because the kids, through my listening, immediately started having conversations about how that space was theirs. And it really transformed everything about how I felt about my classroom.
Right.
It wasn't really my classroom, it was theirs. And so from that moment on, it just made me focus on how much voice of my own I was using versus how much voice that I was letting them use. I don't know if that.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And if you haven't already, go over to teachbetter.com/blogs and go check out that blog post, by the way. But I love the fact that you had the focus on sort of like your own shift between it being your classroom to it being either our classroom or kind of their classroom, right? And that's a huge shift of ownership. It's a scary shift for a lot of teachers, but it's a really important one because at the end of the day, students are the reason that we're in the classroom. They're why we do what we do. So if we're not keeping them into the conversation and we're not bringing them into this discussion, that's definitely an issue. So what would you say was something that stuck out to you about tonight's chat, or maybe some themes or ideas that you think resonated throughout the entire thing?
You know, for question one, I'm going to kind of go to that first one. I felt there was a huge trend regarding wanting your kids to feel safe, and your students to feel comfortable. Someone even, I think it was Kevin Self, hit on that. I think her name's Rita Pearson, of who they're being their champion, and that TED talk that she did, and it just really made me reflect on her TED talk where you know, you're their champion, you're their advocate, and that It was such a short tweet and it had such a huge impact. I want my students to know that I am their champion, and I felt that was, of all of them, I think that was the one that really stood out. There were some great conversations, though, a lot of back and forth that I screenshotted or took a screenshot of. Then question 3 was good about all of the different ways that you can have better questions when you're soliciting that feedback.
Yeah.
And that one was good because I felt like I gleaned a lot, and it wasn't so much the different tools you could use, but it was the type of questioning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that, right? Because I do training on like how to ask good questions and how to make good assessment items, but like I don't really ever think about like surveying my students. Are the questions I'm asking them actually getting to what I want, right? Or are they biased in a certain way that makes it so I'm not going to be getting the information that I want? So do you ever survey your students, Katie?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked this because there was one of the things that was a trend for the bad types of questions was on a scale of 1 to 5. And it totally made me go back to the times where like, okay, kids, hold on your chest. Are you a 1, a 2, a 3, or 4?
Right. Yeah.
Like in the back of my mind, I knew like, I don't know for sure that they're how truthful they're being.
Sure.
So it really made me like think back to that continuum of how I get feedback and how I've become more effective over time with getting feedback. And so I kind of really got away from, are you a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4? Hold it on your chest so no one sees it. You know, that kind of thing. To just really hitting on the relationship and trying to build trust and honesty so that the kids could trust that when I asked them, you know, gosh, guys, this lesson seems really flat. Everyone's disengaged right now. What can I do right now to turn this around? We got to turn this ship around right now.
Yeah.
And the kids are really honest. It's not so much about,
absolutely.
It's really not so much about how am I, you know, how are you doing in the learning? I have to focus on how am I doing in the facilitation of this learning as well. And so that's just, for me, it's not really a tool or a technique, like a digital tool that I use for surveys. It's more of just conversational community and that just those conversations, just asking straight up.
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think there's a lot of insight there. There's a lot of things to pull on. And one of the things I like that you focused on was just that organic conversation and that willingness to kind of pause and stop. I do some classroom management training, and one of the biggest things I tell teachers is that it is absolutely okay to stop everything and reset. You know what I mean? Like, and say, hey, like, what is going on? What is happening that I'm not aware of, or that I should be aware of and I'm not aware of? Or how can I make this experience better? Because right now it's not going well. I think it's when we feel like as educators, we have to be like, the show must go on. We're like these performers that like, we have to get to the end of whatever we planned, or like the lesson, and it has to go as perfect as humanly possible. I know as a younger teacher, as a dumber version of myself at one point, I used to kind of always have to be perfect. Like everything had to be perfect. And if something went wrong, it was the end of the world. And as I got older, as I got more comfortable as a teacher and with my students and just with my pedagogy, I remember when I relaxed was when I had the most fun as a teacher. And when I had more fun, the kids had more fun. And when it was a more relaxed, safe, and open environment, my management actually got better because like I had more leeway. So I created more structures and routines. And like the culture got so much better in my class just from me being more relaxed and being willing to like throw the plan out the window and do what I had to do to kind of make it work. So I absolutely love that you said that. So I don't want to keep you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, I think sometimes people think that when we say we're going to throw the plan out the window, that doesn't mean necessarily that we're throwing the content that we're teaching.
Yeah, right.
Out the window.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's absolutely. I kind of view it as if the problem is engagement, and I know that my kiddos are not engaged, and I can see it. Well, I can, and I know that I'm on the wrong path. Like this is not the path to the destination I want. Well, I can continue driving in the wrong direction, knowing that I'm driving in the wrong direction, which who would do that? Or I can stop the car right now and I can fix it and pull over, reevaluate my map, which are my students, and how I'm going to reach them through the content, and then, you know, change my direction. I don't want to keep on driving when I'm already knowing that I'm not connecting with my kiddos.
Yeah, but it takes guts. It takes guts to do that, right? It takes guts to go like, hey, like we're going to have this conversation right now. I had a mentor when I was a younger teacher, and the mentor would say like, you don't stay on a sinking ship. You get on a life raft and get to your destination anyway, right? And that's kind of what you're saying. Like, don't stay on a ship that's sinking because it's not going to get where you need it to go. So just get on the life raft and let it take you the rest of the way.
That's such a great analogy too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it might not be perfect, but it'll get you there. But in both of those analogies, however you look at this, both of them have to involve you kind of pausing and getting that feedback from your students, right? And before any of that happens, I think this kind of brings our whole conversation full circle. Is you have to have the trust that your students have that you're going to actually do what they say, right? So if you haven't built that rapport with your students, if you haven't built those relationships and that trust and that culture of respect that's mutual, and the fact that like, hey, if we tell you something, you're probably going to change it, that you're going to lose that ability really quick, because they're going to go, well, we told you 5 things last time and you didn't change any of them, right? So like, and I think that goes back to what you were mentioning about sort of those organic conversations and how you have to kind of build that community in your classroom. So I love that you highlighted that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Before we actually end this, do you have any parting words on either feedback or building culture, or just a parting word that you want to give to the audience after the chat tonight before we kind of sign off?
Oh, man.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So.
Yeah, there was just so much that was mentioned, and there are so many people that tweeted some great things about feedback. But I guess I think I felt like there was kind of this back and forth between content or feedback having to be formal, like a formal survey, a formal journal, like an exit slip. And those are all fantastic ways. And I feel like those were ways to garner like academic feedback. Sure. And that's great. I love tips on how to have that different ways to get formative assessment. But if I'm, focusing on improving my instructional practice so that I can be the best for my students every day, I guess my word of advice would be to let it be conversational. It doesn't always have to be a survey or some of the best feedback I've ever got or that I've ever been able to give is in PD, when I'm actually one-on-one with the presenter and the presenter is coming up to me and asking me questions and I'm able to give that feedback. That is so much more powerful of a moment and experience for me than maybe filling out the slip at the end, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Don't neglect, I guess. I think there just needs to be a balance.
I love that. Take the time to have those conversations, right?
Right.
Or like start 1,000 conversations about absolutely nothing or about new sneakers and have those organic conversations absolutely happen, right? I love that. So everyone, if you didn't hear that awesome parting message, it was make your class conversational so your students are open to having those conversations. Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight on this post chat. I love the wisdom we were able to glean off you. I can't wait to actually meet you in person. This is the first time me and Katie have actually talked in person. We talk to each other all the time via comments on the Teach Better Facebook group, which I love. You're fantastic in our group. You're a great help to a lot of teachers. We truly appreciate that here on the Teach Better team and love having you as a part of that. But I'm really excited because we're actually going to get to meet in person in November at the Teach Better conference. So I'm really excited. I'm even more excited about that now that we've had to have this conversation, that we've gotten to have this conversation. So Katie, have a wonderful night. Everybody, Teach Better Nation, have a fantastic evening. And thanks for joining us tonight on the Mastery Chat Recap. Have a great night, guys.
Good night.